Welcome on in. This is the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast for Thursday, September 22nd. John McKechnie and Mario Puig hanging out with you here, getting you ready, breaking down every single game on the Week 3 slate. A lot to get to here on this episode. Let's get it rolling. Welcome on in. This is the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. John McKechnie, Mario Puig, hanging out with you on this Thursday. Mario, how did Week 2 go for you and your various best ball and other fantasy teams?
Not good. I had Trey Lance on like a third of my teams and a lot of Matt Ryan, so those teams are just completely dead already.
Yeah, I can't believe. I mean, obviously the Lance thing, you can't predict that going into the season, but it's almost worse in a way when you have like a Ryan-esque like lead anchor on your team, because it's going to be hard to like drop him. He's still going to be playing, provided that he stays healthy, but the performance is just abysmal. I mean, they go in, they start the season, they tie the Houston Texans as like a touchdown favorite. Then they get shut out by Jacksonville. I know that Jacksonville has like a cosmic force against Indianapolis when they play down in Jacksonville, but even still, like that even Carson Wentz thought that was bad.
They're a dead team. But yeah, in best ball, I don't know what to do anymore. I mean, I guess I'm not even going to take quarterbacks ahead of the other anymore. I'm just going to take quarterbacks at ADP in an exactly even split across the board, because like a couple of years ago, I had Dak too when he broke his ankle, and it was just like, God, I can't say what I want to say. It was just like, what the hell is the point of all this? Why am I even bothering with this nonsense? So, yeah, I'm not going to bother with quarterbacks anymore. Targeting them is pointless. I should just take the hedge fund manager style approach of fantasy football analysis, where I don't know who any of the players are. I just look at prices and I take various exposure rates, and I don't even learn a thing about football. It's the smart way to play fantasy, apparently. So,
yeah, no, diversify, baby.
in volume, anyway, I guess so. I mean, it's like, what the hell? One guy goes down and it's just like dead.
I never thought I'd see the day where you became business guy, 80s business guy from Futurama, but here we are.
I
Here's
believe
hoping.
in Tesla now, and like the World Economic Forum and things like that.
All the good things. You got to. But anywho, let's go ahead and get on into Week 3. We kick off Thursday night this evening. Kind of the polar opposite of what we had cooking last week, where we had Herbert versus Mahomes on Thursday night and Arrowhead. It's like, oh my God, tonight's going to be awesome. And it was. It really did deliver last week. That was a really fun game. Tonight, we got the Browns.
Now it's time to pay, John.
It is. They got us hooked, and now we're stuck. Now we got Browns, Steelers. This line actually, interestingly, has bounced around a good bit over the course of the week. Obviously the Steelers are coming off of a pretty tough showing offensively, so that's a couple weeks in a row now in which that's been the case. This line moved on Monday. It was Browns -5, got up to 5.5, and now we're settling back in at Browns -4. So that kind of interesting to track that along. I really liked the Steelers at +5. At +4, I'm a little bit more concerned, but if you can catch the 4.5, then I think you're in good shape siding with the Steelers, but we'll get more into it. But
I believe, John, some places might have 3.5, like Covers is showing 3.5, which, yeah, if those other lines are out there, it sounds like it won't be for long.
Yeah, FanDuel also has Browns 3.5. So shop around, of course. Take a look, see at what all is out there. PointsBet has up to 4.5 for the Steelers at the time of this recording. But I guess let's start things off on the Steelers side offensively. This is a Browns team that just gave up a lot of points to Joe Flacco. I don't think that the Steelers are it's so weird to say this, but they're not equipped to like attack the Browns the same way that the Jets did, where they just went to the air. And, Flacco, I obviously have a big soft spot for Joe Flacco, but it is the year 2022. But even still, he's gotten by a lot of his career by just kind of chucking it up and seeing what happens. And that's pretty much how things unfolded last week. That's not really the Mitch Trubisky style, however. So, how does this set up for the Steelers? We've talked about maybe this Browns run defense being a little bit suspect, but Najee Harris hasn't been great to start the season. I know he's working through that foot thing. So, what are we thinking here? What are we expecting fantasy wise on the Steelers side here?
Well, I think Flacco was playing pretty badly both of these weeks, and he still, like you said, put up huge numbers on the Browns. But while at once I think Joe Woods is a bad defensive coordinator, and that was something to do with it, just as I also think that the Jets offensive coordinator is good, and that had something to do with it. Matt Canada is just lost. He's the offensive coordinator for the Steelers. He has no idea what he's doing. We know from people who have worked with him in other places that people don't particularly like him. So you might see, it's like one thing when you got an abrasive coach and you feel like you're getting somewhere as a team and like you guys are playing pretty good, especially if you're winning, then you'll kind of put up with anything. But the slog that the Steelers are going through and Canada getting the results that he is, I think they're just going to be bad all year until they fire him, and they might do that this year.
I don't understand why Canada's even there, like how he's gotten to this point, because he wasn't a good college offensive coordinator. He, anytime that you watch a Matt Canada coached game, the broadcast is always like, oh, look at all that window dressing pre-snap, and it's just like guys running around in the backfield, and then the play goes nowhere. It's like,
I love motion, but it's not a substitute for everything else that you need to do right. And again, people who have been around Canada say they can't stand the guy. So I wouldn't be surprised if you start seeing some like sideline shouting and stuff like that, especially if the Steelers get wrecked in this game. I think they will, and don't get me wrong, I shouldn't just assume. I should never count out Tomlin, and I don't. He's dealing with such a bad hand. It like when is it? It's like the other shoe has to drop eventually, and it's a setting like this. I think windy game, by the way, it's going to be windy, so it's like Trubisky already is non-viable as a passer. It could get worse in this game, and the Steelers don't have the ability. I don't think they do anyway to run on the Browns enough to offset the increased defensive focus that the Browns might give to the run and get with impunity, because it's like Trubisky's like 5.1 yards per attempt, and he's not even completing 60% of his passes. You're better off running the ball than throwing with Trubisky right now, and yet the Steelers can't even run that well, both because the defense can sell out against the run, and Harris, the guy wasn't fast to start with, and now he's got a bad foot, and they're just managing it. I hate that. And he's after adding like 15 pounds of mass, gets a foot injury, and they just manage it. Doesn't sound good to me. I think that the Steelers' run defense is still probably busted. I don't know if they have it. I guess they haven't really been lit up for it yet, but I think they do get lit up for it here. And the Browns can hide the Browns can hide Brissett, but I don't think the Steelers can hide Trubisky, especially if the Browns can run the ball, which I don't know why they wouldn't be able to. The Steelers' defense just isn't much either when you don't have T.J. Watt out there. Like when they have T.J. Watt and Hayward and Fitzpatrick, they can kind of do that stars, and you can do like that NBA superstar scrubs approach. But it's like if one of the stars goes down and you don't have any depth, your whole theory is gone just with that. And I think that's where the Steelers are.
Oh, but I thought Alex Highsmith was just going to be able to do exactly what Watt does.
Pretty good, but
he is good.
Like they got so addicted, dependent on Watt and Hayward and Fitzpatrick doing things that are just like borderline impossible. So it's like you try to replace one of those guys with even a good player, and it's still not even good, and not nearly good enough.
No, we're looking at what's expected to be an ugly game tonight. Again, the Browns, somewhere between 3.5, 4.5 point favorites. The over/under has plummeted, not totally surprisingly, from 40.5 down to 38. So we're not really expecting points of palooza this evening. Do you have a pick on this game?
Yeah, I'll say Cleveland, like I don't know, 24-13.
24-13. Okay, all right. So we got Cleveland and we got the under. Looking good. All right, let's move on over to Sunday, cleanse the palate a little bit, although I'm not expecting this game to be a work of art either. We got the Patriots hosting the Ravens. The Patriots, this is their first home game of the season. They are 3-point underdogs at home going up against the Ravens. Lamar Jackson looked to be a little bit limited in practice on Wednesday, had the sleeve on his arm. Obviously, Baltimore not been able to run the ball whatsoever this year without J.K. Dobbins. Still not sure if he's going to be ready to go this week. So you kind of just have to expect that the Ravens once again won't be able to run the ball. That obviously what was a problem for them in salting away the game a week ago against Miami, where they go into the fourth quarter with a 21-point lead. The Ravens of yore would probably just kind of put the chokehold on and run the clock out, but obviously not the case this past week. And the Ravens secondary, I think it's got some talent, but it's obviously not playing well, not playing cohesively. I don't know if Mac Jones can really make them pay for it the way that Tua, Tyreek Hill, and Jalen Waddle did this past week. But at the same time, I think that the secondary problems for the Ravens are exacerbated by the fact that the Ravens don't have a pass rush. They have like all of two outside linebackers on the roster, Owe and Justin Houston. Steven Means got hurt. I think he's on IR. So they just don't have push up front. So that gives any quarterback a lot of time to sit back and throw. And, I don't think a whole lot of Mac Jones, but I think in this case, he's going to be at least comfortable and able to sit back and distribute the ball here in this matchup.
Yeah, definitely with you on the Ravens pass rush. The one thing, I doubt it's going to change the pass rush specifically, but it might change something. Looks like Travis Jones might be able to make his debut. And he's one of those guys who had really poor results in college and his production wasn't that great because the rest of the team around him was just a joke. He's one of the most athletic defensive linemen to come out in several years, bigger linemen especially. He's one of the most athletic. He's like 6'4", 320, and runs and jumps like he's much smaller than that. So he could be pretty interesting. It looks like the Ravens secondary might be a little more healthy this week than last. So I don't think that open net is quite there for Mac Jones like it was for Tua last week. And, the Ravens are still shorthanded. So this is a better spot than it could have been for Mac Jones. But, I don't know. The Patriots offense kind of sucks too.
Yeah.
And I think guys like Marcus Peters and maybe even Brandon Stevens can match up pretty good with Devontae Parker. I just don't get worried about guys like Myers. Aguilar made a big play last week. Generally, that means he's done for the year. Not injured, but he's like, I've done my job. Time to look forward to when I get cut this offseason. Get a big payday. But I just think I don't know. I have trouble imagining what the Patriots can do right, and it seems like they can't either. It's like they're trying to figure out, they're trying to remember what idea they meant to come into this with because they're just kind of flailing. And I don't think Jones is very good. I don't think the supporting cast around him is that good, so I can't see them outplaying their circumstances on the basis of talent. So if the Ravens can't take care of the Patriots, then they're not going to compete this year, is how I see it. The Patriots are not a very imposing team in any respect. I still hate what Greg Roman is doing with that off. The mere fact that they are giving playing time to Demarcus Robinson shows that Greg Roman still doesn't know how anything works. And that makes sense. I mean, he's an old coach. Why would he get better at this
Duvernay
point?
gets dinged up last week, though.
Yeah, but they were playing. I'm sorry. Demarcus Robinson cannot outplay Tylan Wallace or Jaleel. What was that? New Mexico? Whoever. Any receiver that has been on the Ravens, the Bailey Gaither or whatever, all of them.
He gone. He gone. I think.
I know, but he's better than Demarcus Robinson. So that they're doing that. I mean, it's preposterous to imagine Demarcus Robinson producing at Oklahoma State like Tylan Wallace did. Greg Roman just guesses, and sometimes he's less wrong than other times, but he never has any idea what he's doing. And Belichick is kind of toast. His days are just about done, obviously, but he can still outsmart. He can still run laps around the schemes of a guy like Roman. So I'm concerned for the Ravens as I am in any setting, but yeah, Lamar's health, I guess, is the main thing. If his elbow is screwed up, it could go wrong for the Ravens there.
Yeah, no, it absolutely could. So we'll have to, keep an eye on his practice participation levels over these next couple of days as we get into Sunday. But yeah, wrote about it in my column this week that this game kind of boils down to, you get strength on strength in the sense of the Ravens offense versus Patriots defense, and then weakness on weakness with the Patriots offense versus the Ravens defense. And it boils down to whose weakness is indeed weaker. And I kind of feel like it's the Ravens right now. I think that just the bad defense is going to be kind of their undoing. Even if the offense shows up, I think they're going to be able to keep the Patriots in the game with some bad defensive breakdowns. So I like the Patriots in this one to at least cover.
If Duvernay's out too, that's a huge loss for Greg Roman doesn't seem to get it, but Duvernay is one of their best players, and if he's not out there, they have Bateman and Andrews and Lamar with a bad elbow against the world, basically.
Also, I mean, where are you with Bateman right now? I mean, he's been pretty incredible thus far these first couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, he's been good. The target volume would ideally go up, but the Ravens weirdly haven't run many plays. They've just kind of like Duvernay's their second leading receiver in snaps, and he's played like 27 snaps a game. Like normally you're well over 40 for that role. But part of it is, like I said, they just haven't run many plays in general. So even Bateman's snap count is dragged down, and thus the target count. I kind of doubt the big plays will keep being there quite to that extent.
Sure.
I kind of imagine Bateman being more like more volume, less explosiveness than what they've shown so far. So I still kind of expect that. But he's good. There was always every reason to think he was good. He never failed at a previous stop. Has at worst average-ish, slightly above average athleticism. So guys with his profile rarely fail in general, and especially not when they have quarterbacks who win MVP when they're 23 years old.
Yeah, no, that's good point there. And then, as you mentioned there, big plays unlikely to be totally sustainable. We see his ADOT right now checking in at 16.3, so that they obviously are sending him way down the field.
Yeah, that's going to drop by like 6 before the year is over.
Dang it!
Not because it's bad. It just means because there will be a 7-catch 85-yard game. Maybe this week for all I know.
Could be. All right. Before we move on, Mitch has a question. Sit one of the following: DJ Moore going up against the Saints, DK Metcalf against the Falcons, Drake London on the other side of that game, or Garrett Wilson. That's a tough one.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to think it through a bit.
I mean, with Wilson, I guess
I'd sit Wilson, but I know no one wants to hear that.
Right. He's someone that, if he was out there on waiver wires in 10-team leagues this week, like he was scooped up across the board, Metcalf, I think it comes down to like him or Metcalf, because DJ Moore, I'm starting in London, I think is starting to break out. So we actually have Metcalf at 27 and Wilson at 30 this week on our weekly rankings. So that's splitting hairs. London at 26. Actually, so between those three, I think is where it boils down.
Yeah, for me, it's between London and Wilson, actually, and I'd stick with London, but I don't feel strongly about it or anything.
Okay, all right. So we're both Wilson sitters among that quartet.
We hate him.
Yeah, someone's gonna clip it. It's known.
You said he sucks.
Yeah. Good stuff. Before we get on over to our next game, we got a quick message from our friends over at Blue Wire. All right, let's keep it rolling onto this Sunday slate. We got the aforementioned Indianapolis Colts facing the Kansas City Chiefs. This line bounced around a little bit. I think it got as high as Chiefs -7 earlier this week. It's back down to 5.5. Are there any injuries there on the Chiefs that might be influencing that, or is that just kind of the public feeling?
McDuffie isn't new, but McDuffie's on IR. Let me.
But I don't know, 5.5. Like I feel like I like the Chiefs in that one. Like when it was 7, I was on Indianapolis just because the magic number of 7. But 5.5, I feel like the Chiefs probably have that.
So Covers is showing 77% of the volume of bets on the Chiefs, and yet that line has dropped from 6.5 to 5.5. So the Monopoly man has bet on the Colts, it appears, and uh, I guess he may have gotten his money through other less wholesome means, but we have to assume he knows how to bet. And I guess it's got to be Taylor. It's like the assumption that the Colts cover is just that they give Taylor the ball 30 times and he runs for like 180, 200 yards. And with great luck, in addition to that, they managed to keep it under a touchdown spread at the end of the game. I think you take the Chiefs still. I mean, it's tough to tell by general analysis how bad things are with the Colts right now, but they are. It's a ship that is both sinking and on fire. Like it's not like they got a few leaks here and there, and or some problem over there that they can deal with one by one. They're already at the phase where you're going to see guys trying to jump ship and throw other people in the organization down and to get ahead. So, one problem that the Colts have that might not pick up so obviously from afar is that Gus Bradley, uh, like they'd be better off just taking the 11 starters on the Colts defense and telling them figure something out. Like Gus Bradley's scheme is not a scheme at all, really. Like he could tell, he just runs the same thing every play. Jalen Ramsey said this like 3 years ago or whenever, 4 years ago, whenever it was that they were on, that he had to deal with Gus Bradley. He'd come out to the media and just like, we've been running the same play every single play for like all year. Like they know what our coverages are, and it's odd because Matt Eberflus did plenty of like cover 3 type stuff, but he did more varied like hybrid versions of it, mixing in cover 2 and whatever else. Bradley just calls a cover 3 every single play, and he always tips off before the snap which safety is doing which part of the field. And to defenses, it's just like it's like picking like grown vegetables off a stalk or something. It's just like, I'll take that and that, and this looks pretty good. There's no actual defense that the Colts have, and I can imagine the Monopoly man who's betting on the Colts might be looking at like, well, here's what happens in their past splits after when they lose 2 games, they tend to do this in the third. Like this team is insolvent. It is going to completely fall apart. Frank Reich is going to get fired, and before he does, Chris Ballard is going to go to any media person who will allow him to speak off the record and tell them what a bad job Frank Reich is doing and how he tried to stop Frank from hiring Gus Bradley, but he
gave him Matt Ryan.
Yeah. I wanted to keep Carson Wentz, and Reich bullied me into trading him. Or maybe he'll say like Jim Irsay made him or something. I don't know. But Chris Ballard's going to start putting everybody else under the bus. And Gus Bradley, in the meantime, is not fielding a defense. So whatever people thought about the Colts defense, it's like it doesn't apply. Pat Mahomes is going to kill them in this game. And I love Jonathan Taylor, but I don't think 200 yards and 3 touchdowns from Taylor gets them to cover that spread.
No, I really don't either. So I like Kansas City in this spot. I don't like using road teams in Survivor, but yeah, I think you kind of have to consider them this week, especially with like very few kind of heavy favorites going on. And one of the heavier favorites, we'll get to it with Los Angeles facing Jacksonville. It's like, is a busted Justin Herbert something that you want to risk in Survivor, even though they're going to be extra
Staley
rest
factor.
Yeah,
like our model can't predict when Staley makes a guy play a hurry up snap, even though he's like having an asthma attack or whatever. And sometimes games hinge on those little things.
Just a little bit. So yeah, this one I feel like the Chiefs should be in business. I was talking to Jim Coventry the other day. Just one last facet on this game. We were so impressed by the Chiefs' offensive performance in Week 1, but then again, that was the Cardinals doing the things that everyone knows you're not supposed to do against the Chiefs, and the Chargers obviously slowed them down a little bit more last week. So anywhere between those two performances, what are you expecting from this Chiefs offense. I think I have an idea based on what we were just saying about Gus Bradley, but please.
Right. I'm going to say right now, the way the Chiefs lose the first game of the year will come down to the fact that they are wasting 25, 30 snaps a game on Jerick McKinnon. They're playing 10 on 11, 20, 35 snaps a game by choice. And that will be something that costs them at some point. It hasn't cost them yet because Staley intervened, just intervened and tilted the game to the Chiefs through his poor coaching. They should have lost that game because McKinnon played a bunch of snaps, got them nothing for it. Just like he got barely a yard per snap from scrimmage last year on his 160 snaps or whatever. Like, you can't actually survive over a long sample with those kinds of returns from one of your 11 reps on the field. You have to get yardage from scrimmage from that position, and you can't do it over a sustained sample. So they will eventually lose because of that. And specifically, they will lose because they didn't run the ball enough with Pacheco and even Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They'll give snaps to McKinnon, waste reps that they didn't actually have the margin to afford. And that's how it'll go. This game, I don't think they can do it. I don't think the Chiefs can blow it if they try to, hardly. I mean, the Colts have nothing. No one wants to be there. They have no talent, and the coaches are all looking to throw each other down so they can outrun the bear. And it's just gonna be a mess. They're not a real team.
Yep, it's looking about as bleak as you could expect, especially for a team that, if we were talking 2 weeks ago, would there have been like a more cakewalk division to win than the AFC South for Indianapolis, and obviously that just simply isn't the case. And
the Colts were the schedule that we thought that they had. Bizarre.
Dennis Green. All right. Enough on that game. We'll move on. Before that, we've got a message from our friends over at BroThrow. Have you ever bet on sports with your buddies? BroThrow is the only sports betting platform that lets you bet directly with your friends. And BroThrow doesn't take a cut of every bet. No fees, no juice, no middleman. BroThrow is not a sports book. You bet on sports directly against other users with no juice or vig, which saves you a ton of money over time. Betting $11 to win $10 stinks. With BroThrow, you bet $10 to win $10. BroThrow offers a hassle-free sign-up process that lets you get in on the action in seconds. And you don't have to deposit money on BroThrow either. Instead, you pay other bettors directly. Throw out your first bet and go to brothrow.com/ROTO and use code ROTO. BroThrow is free to sign up. Cut out the middleman and start betting on BroThrow. That's brothrow.com/ROTO. That's brothrow.com/ROTO. We also got a message from our friends over at Vivid Seats. Hey, football fans, get your jerseys on and your tailgate snacks ready. That's right. NFL season is back, and so is your chance to score tickets with Vivid Seats. Download the Vivid Seats app or visit vividseats.com to see your team's schedule, compare tickets, and secure your spot in the stands. As the only ticketing company with a reward program, Vivid Seats is the winning app for NFL fans like you. Earn credit when you buy 10 tickets, then cash it in to catch more games all season long. With tickets from Vivid Seats, you'll go from watching the game to being a part of it. Go to vividseats.com or find us in the App Store to browse unbeatable seats. We'll see you in the stadium. I actually used Vivid Seats last week to go to a Braves game down here in Atlanta. For whatever reason, I've seen the Braves play the Phillies like 8 times this season. I love going to Braves games, but I'd like to see a different opponent. But either way,
won every time.
I believe so. I don't think that the Braves have lost to the Phillies with me in the house. But
if you don't go to the next Phillies Braves game and they lose it,
we've isolated the variable at that point, and I don't want to mess it up for my Braves friends down here, especially with my Orioles now kind of officially dead in the water thanks to the freaking Detroit Tigers. Anywho, we'll keep it rolling here. Sorry to digress off of that. Let's see here. Coming up next, or let's see if we got a couple of questions to get to. Monir got offered an interesting trade here. Got offered Zeke, Antonio Gibson, and Cortland Sutton in exchange for Terry McLaurin
and Terry McLaurin for Eckler.
And Terry McLaurin. All that for Eckler.
Man. Well, I wouldn't mistake any of them for being as valuable as Eckler. That is a lot to get, like up to 4 starters for a guy who you are selling low on Eckler, but it's like you're getting a price as if you're selling not low on him. This must
Right.
this was a small league.
And would have to drop some players,
Okay,
but
so this sounds like a smaller league. I don't know if I would do that then because the bigger the league, the more the depth might matter. But if you're in like an 8-team, 10-team league and dropping Juju sounds almost more like 8. Uh, in that frame, guys like Zeke aren't that useful. So
good point. All right, so stand pat in that particular scenario. Appreciate the question there. Let's get on over Saints Panthers. Panthers 3-point dogs at home. Baker Mayfield obviously not looking great thus far. They're 0-2. They lost to the Giants this past week. The Saints, a lot of turnovers in that loss to Tampa Bay. Traditionally, that's been a game that they're able to beat Tampa Bay when they're in New Orleans over the last few years, but obviously didn't happen. That game was weird. It was a total rock fight for like the first 3 quarters, and then Bucks were able to pull away in that one. Now we got the Saints on the road. Around this time last year, I believe the Saints were road favorites against the Panthers, and the Panthers crushed them. But at the same time, we were kind of mistakenly thinking maybe the Panthers were turning a corner, and Sam Darnold wasn't completely off the NFL radar at that time. Things are obviously different this time around, but what are your thoughts on this particular matchup?
excuse me. Well, Jameis Winston playing with 15 broken backbones or whatever isn't quite what I want to hear. But
The Jameis clip after week 1 is like one of the great things I've heard in quite some time. Where it's just like, what'd you go to the injury tent for? Pain all over.
yeah, he wasn't lying apparently. That sounds bad, and I don't know what exactly the Saints think they're going to do about that over the course of the year. But Panthers are not a real team. Like they're a joke. And I was, of course, not really all that sympathetic to Baker Mayfield in recent times, but I also would say him playing badly through 2 weeks isn't even his fault. Like they have a bad offensive line. That one was obvious. He's limited, of course, so it's just not fair to expect him to like lift a tide, especially when you're talking about such a wreckage of a team. So I think it's just kind of what they are. Matt Rule, of course, not helping anything. It's just a circus. So the Saints are a vaguely foundationally sound team. So I think if only on that basis they win, but also I think they have a huge talent advantage too.
Do you think that they win by more than a field goal, though?
Yeah,
Okay, all right, fair
not
enough.
because it's pretty, but you know.
And then 2 fantasy notes to touch on. So obviously Chris Olave.
I'm listening. I'll be right back though.
Yes. Chris Olave had a ton of air yardage this past week, ran a ton of routes, 5 catches for 80 yards on 13 targets. Your thoughts on whether not that type of stat line is sustainable, but when it comes to Olave, are we going to start to see kind of like his big week, his breakout coming in the near future? And then what do you make of Alvin Kamara right now?
Well, I used to really like Olave for Rookie of the Year, but I wouldn't have ever considered that if I knew about the broken back situation with Jameis popping up. So I don't know how they make anything consistently out of Olave, especially with Thomas as the clear number 1. But I definitely believe in Olave. Definitely think he can beat most NFL corners right now. If the quarterback's looking for him and if the quarterback can make the throw, definitely think Olave can pop up, but it's a little tough to like imagine specifically. I guess it's like we need some more questions answered before we can really foresee the specifics with that. The Kamara thing, I don't know. It sounds like it's got to be a pretty significant injury if they kept him out of a game like last week's, and yeah, if he's still limited with bad ribs, that doesn't sound like the easiest thing to play through. So, with that said, I could imagine if he plays in this game, I could imagine him getting like 2 touchdowns on for every like 7 or 8 touches from scrimmage. I just don't know if I expect him to like be the amazing Alvin Kamara that we've seen in the past.
Yeah, I think that's definitely fair. As someone who has very little shit, he was one of the stranger guys to get shares of this offseason, because if you were, then you were, making the bet that he wasn't going to get suspended. It's like, okay, great, like he's not, so that should pay off. But now dealing with that rib injury, already missed a game. You almost hope that maybe he just misses one more and is back closer to 100% next time around, instead of aggravating an injury that but a lot of football players say there's few things worse than a rib injury from just practical life perspective. But
and they shouldn't need him. Like, if they can't beat this Panthers team without Kamara, then they're not doing anything in the wild card round anyway.
No, very good point there. Quick question here from Landon: Kareem Hunt or Zeke this week?
And that's actually tough, because I could imagine Hunt getting a little more work than usual in this game, just because it's a short week and Chubb's gone over about he's at like 22 touches a game right now. 17 game season. It's not nothing. It's something for them to think about. So on the other hand, the Giants kind of are goofy. I think I would go with Hunt. Maybe that's stupid though. I don't know. Is that stupid? I think I just like the Steelers' run defense. I think is definitely bad. By the way, the Giants probably is not good. I just don't trust Dallas to do anything. I don't know. Maybe I'm just like overly paranoid about Dallas, because I do believe in Zeke. I don't know what to make of the rest of that team.
Right. It's tough. We have Hunt at RB29 this week and Zeke at RB21. So maybe that's a little low on Hunt, given the potential game setup here, like you're mentioning.
He has just one less snap than Chubb this year. So if he gets a little bit more carries than he usually does in this game, and the Steelers are as busted as they've looked, I don't know. Maybe Hunt is the floor play and Zeke the ceiling or something like that. But maybe it's stupid. I think I would go with Hunt though.
Okay, good framing, good rationale. Let's move on. Another absolute, a lot of eyes nationwide on this one. Texans, Bears in Chicago. We got the Bears game. 3-point favorites. Yes, Lovey coming home. Going to be booed vociferously, just as Russell Wilson was in Seattle. I'm sure. No, but the Bears. I mean, that was a bleak game plan that they had on Sunday night. I mean, how are you going to let Justin Fields throw it more times in a freshwater hurricane than in fine conditions in Green Bay when you're in a catch-up script?
Because Ryan Poles is there to tear the whole team apart, sell it for parts, cut payroll. Just
what is his deal? Yeah, what's his
he's just a Pinkerton GM. He's there to cut payroll and just create the expectation that no one gets a good contract to just turn the Bears into a high yield savings account for their owners. It's just that. And there's going to be more and more guys like him. There's a lot of money in being a Pinkerton backstabber, and much more in other jobs are dwindling every day, as you see. So anyway, there's no trying to win reason for running the Bears offense the way they did last week. So I don't know. I don't think they're a real team. I think they have some talent. I do like Fields. I still think Fields is good, or can be very good in any case, pending some certain outcomes that we're waiting on. I can't pick the Bears to win this game though. I just don't sincerely believe they're trying to win as much as the Texans are, and I don't know. I do like David Montgomery, and I think Darnell Mooney even if the Bears are trying to sabotage Mooney and Cole Kmet, I think they both finally do something in this game. Mooney should be able to run away from Desmond King, who's more of like a cover 2 kind of outside corner in a slowish slot. So I think there's some ways for Fields to get going. I can't see them doing anything that the other side can't match with a guy like Brandon Cooks, and mediocre as it's been, I feel like the Houston running game should get some footing if the score stays within range, and it seems like it almost has to. So I don't. This is not one of those games where you expect anyone to truly win. It's like maybe one loses a little faster than the other, and I don't know who's going to be that one.
I got the Bears just because they're at home, but I mean,
Yeah.
all your points stand.
Those corners are good. Those two outside, or I don't know, maybe Kyler's. Jalen Johnson is good, and it's apparently Eddie Jackson every 3 years gets 10 intercept. Either has 10 interceptions or 0, and we might be on whatever cicada timeline he is, where he has one of his big interception seasons.
I was so out on Eddie Jackson as a prospect because like he made all those big plays at Alabama, and then it was starting to look good for me in that take, and then obviously all of a sudden he's making all these plays on Sundays, and it's like, oh boy, maybe I was dead wrong on that one, but perhaps not.
You were right, and everybody about Eddie Jackson was very right and very wrong.
Schrodinger's defensive back. But move it, or I guess last two things to touch on. A couple of young players on the Texans. Damien Pierce, you alluded to him. The things kind of swung in the sensible direction last week after Rex Burkhead had way too much work in week 1. Damien Pierce kind of took over the backfield work second half against Denver, and then Nico Collins, he had a bunch of targets last week, didn't really turn out into a ton of production necessarily, but is Kyler Gordon a weak enough link in that Bears secondary to where maybe this is a good spot for Collins, maybe more like for DFS than you're starting him in season long, and then Pierce, is this someone that you feel comfortable starting in your flex?
It wouldn't be the kind of comfort where I get my hopes up exactly, but if you got to start Pierce in a flex spot, you can kind of at least take comfort in knowing a lot of people in your league are in a worse spot, even if you're not that thrilled about it. So I see no reason why he shouldn't get going a little bit. I don't know why it's been this difficult in the first place. I just expected them to do a little better on offense in that last game than they did. But yeah, it should be a setting for Pierce to get going. I can't really think of why it wouldn't, aside from, I guess, like Justin Fields just going crazy and putting up 14 points in the first quarter or something. Otherwise, anything less than that, it's like Pierce should get to 15 carries.
Yeah, I like the projection here when it comes to Pierce. Let's move on over next game. Before then, Adam's got a question. Drop one of these three, Valdez-Scantling, Pacheco, or Sky Moore. A lot of Chiefs exposure on that roster.
Well, if you have to put any of these guys in a lineup, maybe you keep Valdez-Scantling just because he plays a lot of snaps, but I would cut Valdez-Scantling because unless you're in a 14-team league or something, I just don't think his production moves the needle to the point where like you want to, like if you're starting Valdez-Scantling, someone else is hurt, and if no one else is hurt, and you just have this bench spot that you're not starting anyway. Pacheco and Moore are clearly better in my opinion because Moore can scale up if Hardman or Juju gets hurt. Valdez, by the way, I don't think Valdez-Scantling can scale up under any circumstances, basically. So that's the other thing I'm assuming here. But Pacheco, it's obviously as simple as if Clyde Edwards-Helaire gets hurt, which
is a bench spot, by the way.
Okay, yeah, I would keep the rookies then because I think they have an upside scenario even if there's zeros in the meantime, whereas Valdez-Scantling is always like a 3.5 no matter what's going on.
Right. Yeah, I think that's the right way to look at it. So I'm with you there. One trade question from Jared: should he trade Kelsey and Gabe Davis? So this is a potential blockbuster for
I wouldn't do
Brandon Ayuk, Tyreek Hill, and Kyle Pitts.
Man, I don't know. The Hill part is definitely tempting, but if Gabe Davis is back, Nick, I guess, do we know, does Davis have like a bad thing? I hadn't seen anything especially.
He had an ankle. I know that Michael Pittman returned to practice. Let me look on Gabriel Davis.
So either Davis has a normal ankle sprain and he's a good chance to return this week, or he has a high ankle sprain and might be out for up to 3 more games. I hadn't seen anything toward that question. I don't know. I'm still high on Gabe Davis in any case. So it is an upgrade to go from Davis to Hill. I just don't know if it's worth the. I'm very high on Pitts, and I don't take the last 2 weeks to mean a whole lot, but Mahomes is going to throw for like twice as many touchdowns as the Falcons do. So I do think Kelsey to Pitts is a big drop off, and I'm high enough on Davis that even with Ayuk in there, I don't instantly flock toward the Hill option. But if Davis is missing like a month, I guess that would change my thinking a bit.
So Davis limited at a walkthrough on Wednesday for what that's worth, but I'm probably sticking with again, like you said. But then the trade might fall apart, so this might be kind of like an expiring offer.
And of course, if Davis misses time, then Hill and Pitts will outproduce just Kelsey. It's just kind of hard. I don't know. I guess. I wouldn't be against making it. I should say it's like I just personally wouldn't. I don't think it would be wrong to take it.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Let's get on over. Speaking of Tyreek Hill, speaking of Gabe Davis, we got Dolphins Bills. In my estimation, probably the best game of this weekend. Yeah. Dolphins coming off that amazing game against Baltimore this past weekend, and Buffalo continues to make statements. This is their first Sunday game of the year after a Thursday and a Monday nighter to start the season, but they obviously just eviscerated both the Rams and the Titans. Is that 2 number 1 seeds that they took down, or no? I think the Rams played on Wild Card weekend last year, but either way, they obviously ended up winning the Super Bowl. But yeah, the Bills. I mean, their Super Bowl odds are like down to like plus 450 from like plus like. Bless you. Like plus 700 coming into the season. So the Bills just kind of tightening that vice grip. They look like the absolute team to beat. But I feel like the Dolphins are equipped to kind of punch back because the Bills are going to hit their big shots in this game. Like there's going to be a long touchdown to somebody. And I think whereas the Titans and the Rams, even to an extent, got rattled, I don't think that the Dolphins are of that mentality. I think that they know that they have, and maybe, last week that is something that's, too much of a recency bias call on this one, but that, with them turning the page over, new coaching staff, you got Tyreek Hill in the building now. I feel like they can't be scared whenever the Bills kind of do the thing that scares seemingly everyone else. So I like the Dolphins to make this one competitive. I don't know if they have the firepower to make it last for all 60 minutes this time around. So the 6.5 number is pretty interesting, but I think they give them the Bills, one of their toughest tests of the entire season, Miami early in the year.
Yeah, it's tough for me to think this through because I really don't know what to think about the Dolphins. Like McDaniel seems like he's doing a pretty good job, and if he's decent as a coach, that's not that I'm saying like Flores was bad exactly, but if McDaniel's is decent as a coach, it would specifically show up in the offense, and that has been awful for the Dolphins forever. So yeah, the Bills' defense is better this year, specifically in the front four. Like Von Miller being there, Rousseau being a year older. Those two are huge rep improvements over what they were putting out last year. And Jordan Phillips, too, I guess, is a pretty big deal with all the help that he has. So the Bills' defense is definitely better, but I don't know if I believe the Bills' offense is as good as it seemed. Like they've had in each the Rams game and the Titans game, they've had some kind of just really crucial, fatal flaw to exploit in both defenses. Namely, neither of them had any cornerback depth. And you get Stephon Diggs over and over against this Avery corner who I've never heard of. I don't remember his name. We probably won't see him in the league in a year. It's like that kind of stuff. It's at once part of the Bills dictating matchups, and it's also part of just these teams aren't ready to play them. Mm-hmm. And the Dolphins, maybe they won't be any better prepared either, but they're not going to have Stephon Diggs on any Avery equivalent. Like they're going to have either some kind of bracket on him or they're going to have Xavier Howard on him. And Diggs can beat anybody, including Howard, but we've seen some very T-ball kind of setups for the Bills offense so far. And, Josh Allen has had tears in the past. that tend to go into cold spells for a game, if only that. So people think Allen can't fail. I think he can. I think he will be always the kind of guy who has an off game once in a while. Almost every player does. I'm just meaning to say people think now that he is not. He's basically the best player ever. A lot of people think, and Mahomes is still the better quarterback, and I would say Herbert is too. B, if the Dolphins are competitive, if the Dolphins can hold up against that pass rush, that's my main concern. Is like can Armstead and Jackson's backup, Austin Jackson's backup, whoever that is, can they manage Von Miller and Greg Rousseau? Because if they can, then Kaiir Elam is the only Bills corner who can vaguely run with Waddle and Tyreek Hill. And even he, I mean, he's fast, but you need to be like a 4-2 territory kind of runner to keep stride with Waddle and Hill. So I do think that the Bills secondary can be beaten by receivers like these. You want to take this defense vertical because they're playing zone coverage and they're banking on their pass rush and getting to the quarterback before some of these receivers get open. If the receivers are this fast, then if they can get toward the end of the corner zone and guys like Poyer and Hyde have to turn and run, that doesn't suit Poyer or Hyde. They are not fast safeties. They're small and quick. So if they have to turn and run, which hasn't happened this year yet, they might have their first challenge of the year. And sometimes when you haven't seen a new look, especially, it's like they haven't seen McDaniels call an offense. They haven't seen Hill and Waddle on the field at the same time. This might be a good spot for the Dolphins to kind of trap them in a way that, they might win this game, but not the next 4 against the Bills. So it's just stuff like that I think makes this a little closer than people might think it. But then again, on the other hand, too, you might have like the what would you call it? The like the excitement hangover of the previous week. The big comeback, the emotional win over the Ravens. Like maybe that leaves the Dolphins a little drained, but I don't know. Maybe it galvanized them instead.
Right. I tend to lead with the latter or lean on the latter there, and I do think that the Dolphins hang on, make this one competitive. I don't think they win outright, but I think they lose by closer to a field goal. So I like them to cover in what should be and hopefully will be, a pretty high scoring game.
Josh Allen is not better than Herbert. Sorry, Sammy. It's just not the case.
Fair. Let's see here. Next up, or before next up, we got a message from our friends over at MKF, also known as Monkey Knife Fight. Football is officially back on Monkey Knife Fight with all the NFL action you're looking for. And if college football is more your speed, they've got plenty of that too. On Monkey Knife Fight, there's no sharks, no salary caps, no math. I like that part. It's just easy to play, easy to win. Daily fantasy player props. Join now at monkeyknifefight.com and you'll get your first game free. Then use promo code RWNFL to get your first deposit matched instantly up to $100. So what are you waiting for? Join Monkey Knife Fight today. And speaking of Monkey Knife Fight College, I am on the Monkey Knife Fight College Football Show. Check that out. We run that on Fridays. So if you're in on getting some Saturday action rolling, we got that. I think Tennessee versus Florida is going to be a big part of that show, but we got plenty more as well. Wake Forest, Clemson going in that show too. Let's go Lions, Vikings. Vikings obviously just got pantsed basically by the Eagles on Monday night. A couple of I love a Monday Night Football doubleheader, but neither of those games were particularly entertaining.
I hated that so much.
Yeah.
That's the synergy thing is like. Anyway, hopefully that was just a stupid idea they never do again.
I mean, like in the past when they've done the double headers, it's been like, okay, one ends or is ending, and then the other one is starting. The overlap was
different
was
channels at least. Like this thing where it's like you have to watch both at the same time, but when you try to switch channels, you just end up getting like a replay of what you just watched on the previous. Terrible.
Yeah, it was goofy to say the least. But the Vikings, obviously, I don't know. I don't think I really take away too much from that game for them. I think the Eagles are they're just really good, and the Vikings, Kirk Cousins, notably terrible in prime
Eagles
time.
Eagles are really good. That's
yes.
My favorite Super Bowl bet for the odds right now.
Yes, liking that a lot. We'll get to them in a bit. They're going on the road to face the Commanders this week. But when it comes down to this game, Lions scored 35 points or more in each of their first 2 games. Amon-Ra St. Brown looking great so far. DeAndre Swift looking good. This offense just in general, solid. The defense, they've surrendered some points in their own right, but, Washington's got a lot of talent on offense, and obviously as does Philadelphia. So what are your thoughts on this matchup with Minnesota being nearly a touchdown favorite?
I don't like Minnesota to win by that much. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I'm just too big of a Campbell fan. Definitely possible, but I definitely think the Lions make this kind of a down to the last drive kind of game. Maybe they don't ever put the fear of God into the Vikings, but I think they make the Vikings play to the end at the very least. So I think if Goff can keep his deal together, and it's hard for me to imagine why he would screw up so bad. I mean, the Vikings corners are not very good.
No.
I guess Dantzler's okay or whatever. I thought Booth was going to be a really good NFL corner, but apparently they won't let him even be active. So I think with DJ Chark and Amon-Ra, and even not to just act like Hawkinson isn't real or that Swift doesn't do anything as a pass catcher. Like there's a lot of ways the Vikings can make Goff look pretty decent. Like if Danielle Hunter and Zadarius Smith don't just take him down in under 2 seconds, I don't know how that defense covers all those guys at once successfully.
Right, and that's where like the Lions offensive line like is a factor here because it's really, really good.
Yeah, so I'm maybe too high on the Lions, but I think they make it close. I think their defense, although Hutchinson stepped up last week, and if you can keep that up, that would be a big difference from last year. Like last year, it's like the best pass rusher was Okwara, who like tore his Achilles or something early in the year. I feel like if, maybe I'm remembering wrong, but that defense can be bad and still have like a much better pass rush than last year. So Cousins can't just like mail it in and still get a good game here, but those corners can't deal with Jefferson or Thielen or maybe even Osborne. So unless Hutchinson just goes like total Derek Thomas on him, I don't see what excuse Kirk Cousins has for throwing for anything less than like 240 and 2 touchdowns in this one.
Yeah, obviously, like a Justin Jefferson bounce back in this game as well. Let's keep things going. We got Bengals Jets. This game killed a lot of survivors last year, myself included. The Mike White game, everyone knows it, everyone loves it, everyone remembers that one. That was truly one of the goofier NFL outcomes that
nothing will ever be that good again.
No, I don't think so. We get another non-Zach Wilson Jets team facing off against the Bengals. I think the Bengals get right in this spot. I think that I don't
know, man. They're all right, screwed up. Sorry, you're right. They should. I always have trouble thinking through some of these things where it's like the Bengals are getting just killed. Like they are terrible, and it's the problem is Zach Taylor. Like he's such a bad play caller. Zach Taylor is kind of like the simulation of what would happen if Cliff Kingsbury grew up with like what was it? Where was Taylor? I can't remember who Taylor came. I guess it was he was under McVay at some distant point or something like that, or like Gruden. I can't remember exactly, but he came up with whatever he did, whatever playbook he had wherever he was before, and he's just been kind of carrying it with him and mashing buttons. And he doesn't have any insights as a coach. He hasn't adapted the scheme himself. He hasn't improved it or added anything to it. He's just carrying the same playbook for the past 10 years, and he gets up there and he's like, I hope this works. Click, click. And sometimes it did last. It often did last year because Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins are very good, and Tyler Boyd, I think, is really good. Mixon, of course, was doing a good job too. But the point is, with personnel like that, especially at receiver, even Cliff Kingsbury might not be able to screw that up. And last year was kind of like, this is how much Taylor is capable of getting out of the way. Now his tendencies have been figured out, and he hasn't changed anything yet. We've never seen him make an adjustment in his coaching career. Like he just doesn't do anything. At best, he is a useless coach. So unfortunately, he's kind of getting in the way now in a way that preempts the talent that carried him last year. Like we're seeing Chase, Higgins, Burrow fail, even though no one can cover them. And it's because I have to believe it's because he's just tipping off the pass really badly. It's like you see defenses just clobbering that offensive line. Just granted, playing against T.J. Watt, Cam Hayward, and then Micah Parsons is a good way to make an offensive line liability look even worse than it is.
Right.
But it's like Quinnen Williams is no joke. Like there's not bums exactly in this defense. So I don't know. And in the meantime, the Jets offense is just so aggressive that they kind of like wear defenses out over the course of the game by running so up tempo and just throwing the ball, making guys chase these receivers all over the field over and over and over, 75 times a game of that. And they're just gassed at the end. And I don't know if the Bengals have the depth to deal with that. I mean, the Bengals need their pass rush to win this game. They need Trey Hendrickson to make Flacco toss up a couple gems, and I'm scare quote gems in this case, the Flacco gem, you might call it. You need those plays to pop up because I don't think if the Bengals need Taylor to intervene, they're just toast.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue with what you're saying there, but I think the key for me and what's been the big problem for the Bengals the first couple of weeks of the season is just how bad the offensive line has been. Joe Burrow basically on the David Carr trajectory as far as sack totals for this year is concerned. So that needs to get fixed, of course. And you mentioned that the Jets aren't total slappies when it comes to the defensive side of the ball, but I do think that they are several notches below what Pittsburgh and what Dallas was throwing at them. So with that in mind, if I just think that Joe Burrow gets enough time to operate in this one and they're able to kind of get back on track, I do have long-term concerns for this Bengals team, but I think that they are also not an 0-3 type of team. So I will take them to win this one and to cover. I don't feel great about it, though.
I'll take them to win, but not cover. And this could be the DFS game to target because the Jets love to take every game to like 85 snaps. And that's where you want your picks, if so.
Yes. Heck yes. Let's see. We got a couple of questions here. Amari Cooper or Curtis Samuel in the flex in a standard scoring?
I'd go with Cooper, I think, but I mean, no hate on Samuel or anything. I just, I don't know. I don't know. It's hard for me to figure out what the Washington offense is going to do, especially since the Eagles' defense is different than what they've seen. Whereas it's kind of difficult for me to imagine Jacoby Brissett throwing 25 passes with less than 7 or 8 going to Cooper.
Right. But you also mentioned, the wind could be a factor.
Yeah, crap. Oh man, I don't know. I don't hate the Samuel pick. I think I would go with Cooper, but not because I'm trying to say don't pick Samuel. I'd just go with Cooper myself.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That checks. He's clearly the best option in that Cleveland passing attack. So as long as they get to that magic number, like you said, like 25 pass attempts, which isn't even asking a lot. You figure really that Cooper accounts for at least a third of those. Raiders, Titans, another couple of teams here looking to avoid dreaded 0-3 starts. This one, we got some differences at books. Titans anywhere between a 2.5 and 1.5 point underdog at home. I think last week, and to another extent, the Giants game kind of shows you that the Titans were ripe for a coming back to earth. And I do think that Vrabel's a good coach, but I just think that roster kind of stinks.
They suck. They're terrible.
Obviously, it was like a nightmare setup for Derrick Henry last week. I don't think that applies this time around. So if Derrick Henry gets on track, that keeps the Titans in this game. But I gotta side with the Raiders here. I just think that the Titans are going to end up being so one dimensional once again, to where yes, the Derrick Henry battering ram is going to see 20 plus touches, and that's going to the defense isn't going to love that after a certain point. But Tannehill, he can't really do anything right now, especially not with the pass catching group around him. And I don't think that the defense is all that special either on the Tennessee side. So I like the Raiders in this spot.
The one thing the Raiders need to account for is Jeffrey Simmons, and if they keep him from taking over the game, I feel like they would almost have to try to lose to not win this one.
I mean, they've done that though.
They have, but the Titans, they're run by people who aren't like Vrabel might be a good coach. I don't know. He certainly gets certain results pretty well. Like he gets his guys to play hard for him. He's wily and whatever. He's not scared of pressure situations, but he doesn't have any good players. Their offensive coordinator is just terrible, and they were in the decline phase anyway. Like we knew they were going to deteriorate at some sort of rate, and I think we're just witnessing that it's here, it's happening. We knew it was going to happen, and now we more got to wonder like how bad is it going to get? Where are they going to go next? And I think the sooner they give this Malik Willis thing a try, the better, because Tannehill is pitiful to watch when he doesn't have AJ Brown picking him up, and it's just going to get this pass rush could be trouble too. I mean, like they got Chandler Jones, Max Crosby. How well do you think Tannehill is going to do with those two teeing off on him? I think this could get ugly.
Did I forget? I remember Luan got hurt early in that game. Did he come back in?
No, he might be out. He might I don't know if they ran the MRI yet, but he might be out for like the year. I can't. I have to check. Sorry, I should check on that. I forgot to follow
That'd be what, 2 years in a row now, or that something like that happened to him. So
couldn't happen to a better guy, etc. But yeah, he's not practicing, but that he's even on the injury report, I'm pretty sure means that he is not on injured reserve, which is kind of where you would expect him to go if it was like a torn ligament or something.
Right. Either way, that. If 75% Taylor Luan going up against a mix of Crosby and Jones doesn't seem like a particularly, favorable setup for this Titans passing attack. So yeah, Raiders, once again, I do like them here, even though maybe I needed to readjust my overall ceiling thoughts on them. Maybe, I don't know, the Devontae Adams thing should get back on track this week. Obviously,
yeah, they're fine.
Not worried about him. So it'll work. Let's see. Lucius, he said that the thumbnail brought him in to our live stream here. So I assume credit to Alan for that one, unless it's just our wonderful visages on the thumbnail. But deciding between Carson Wentz and Russell Wilson. Ugh.
Yeah.
We have Wentz ranked a little bit higher. We have them both outside of our top 12.
I would go Wentz, but it's like even that I'm anxious about. Now I'm going with Wentz because I will say that John Gannon or whatever his name is, he seemed to call a good game against Kirk Cousins last week, but every other time I have paid close attention to the Eagles' schemes under him, it drives me crazy some of the stuff that he does. So I don't know. Like maybe Gannon can take care of a Vikings offense, but maybe Washington having the pass catcher depth and the speed specifically that they do. The Vikings offense is supposed to be good, but it's not fast. Like Jefferson's the fastest player on it probably, and he's like a 4.43 guy. So it's a little different when you got Terry, you got Curtis Samuel as a burner. Jahan Dotson's pretty dang fast too. Logan Thomas is fast by tight end standards, et cetera, et cetera. It's like people think Antonio Gibson's probably slow, and even he's like a 4.39 guy. So I don't know if we can trust Slay and Bradbury to play well. They're just that good. But if the Gannon effect comes in, it's going to be in the slot. They might not hide Avonte Maddox sufficiently. Maybe Wentz can get something going there, but I am nervous about Wentz. I do think he has some choke in him, and the Eagles' defense might just be pretty tough too, to be fair to Wentz. But man, the Broncos are just run by the biggest fools in the league. Their offense doesn't have an identity other than checking down to Javonte Williams 14 times. And I just think DeMeco Ryans could really, really make Nate Hackett look like a bad coach.
Yeah, so I like Wentz between those two as well, which is just a wild statement, but that's where we are through the first couple of weeks. So, obviously you're just talking about this Washington offense. Our next game so happens to be Commanders versus Eagles. So unpack the Washington side already. Your thoughts on the Eagles here? They are let's see here, 6.5, 7 point, 6.5 point favorites going on the road. Again, this is a tough week for Survivor, but it's obviously not a far trip for Philadelphia. I can imagine a lot of Philly fans in the stands in Washington, so it's not going to feel so much like a road game. It's a pretty quick trip. I think I'm on the Eagles in Survivor. I think I'm that sold on them.
I like the Eagles a lot. I don't know. I haven't thought about Survivor at all. It's not like I have a better idea, but I don't think it's a safe game exactly because basically Jalen Hurts is the same player that he's always been. He had a really great game against the Vikings because the Vikings just got whooped. Like Shane Steichen just put them in a chokehold the first play and just never let them out. And the Vikings were in hell the whole game. And that's something that could continue, especially against Jack Del Rio. I mean, that guy probably hasn't worked like 10 hours in the past 2 years. So that's good for the Eagles and good for them sustaining like this surge, this tear that they're kind of on. And Steichen, I am positive, will always outsmart a coach like Del Rio. But the part that makes me wonder about whether Washington can play back is Scott Turner has done a pretty good job with that offense this year, and I definitely expect Scott Turner to outsmart John Gannon. So I don't want to say that Hurts fails exactly or anything, but I do think if by just some kind of like fluke or misfortune or whatever, he ends up a little bit more stressed than he's been in these first 2 weeks, he will start making those really puzzlingly bad throws. It's like he hasn't made them yet because he's smart and he's reading the field right and he's seeing these leverage points in the defense. He's making good decisions, thought processes. But if for whatever reason, if he's forced to just sit back, read an ambiguous coverage, if he has to look at a secondary that he doesn't know where it's going to go, and if he has a pass rush getting to him at all, he can start making some of those throws where it's like, man, maybe they should put it in Minshew. They got close to that last year. AJ Brown will keep that from happening, I'm pretty sure. But I just mean to say, they look like unbeatable right now or close. And that probably won't hold. And the ways that it won't hold won't always be easily foreseen. Like every week, there's all these games that end in ways that it's like, looking at it beforehand, you're like, no way in hell is this going to happen, and it kind of just does for fluky reasons. So if Scott Turner can get the better of Gannon, and if Washington's moving the ball decent, then I worry a little bit about an upset, just because we don't want Jalen Hurts to get in a shootout exactly.
No, you don't. That's not where he's at his best. I'm just willing to bet that the Eagles kind of come out, continue the way that they've been playing.
I would pick them to win. Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So, and I like based on what you talked about, I think I like the over here. It's 47.5. So I could see.
We don't have any weather or anything. It's kind of hard to. I mean, both teams can kind of spread it out a bit, especially Washington, and then the Eagles. They got a lot of big big ways of making big plays. So yeah, as long as it's not too windy or whatever, it's kind of hard to see why they should fail. The offenses, I mean.
Yep, should be in a good spot. So looking forward to that one on Sunday in the early window. Let's move on to the late window. Jags, Chargers. Chargers 7-point favorites in this one. This one used to be 10, and then it came down to 9, I believe, after Herbert was kind of suffered that rib injury last Thursday night, and then it's down to 7. In light of Jacksonville shutting out Indianapolis, or at least if you're trailing the timestamps in which the line is moved, that kind of checks out. Your thoughts on this game? Let's assume that Herbert plays, but I think we can also assume that he's not going to be at 100%.
Yeah, he sure looked like he was hurting a lot.
That one throw was like scary. It was like, uh-oh, something is horribly wrong. Like, and then he comes right back and it's like, oh my God.
That one throw is almost like, is that what a torn oblique looks like or something? And then, yeah, obviously the next throw It seemed like he was having trouble throwing to the right, though, and I wonder what that means. Like, why would he be able to just do a railgun throw to the left, but to the right, he's drops it like he's a kitten or something. It just is kind of jarring contrast that I've never seen before. Don't know what it
Right.
means. I don't know, man. It's tough for me to trust Staley all that much, even though I also don't trust this Jaguars defense. Like, I know they throttled the Colts, but the Colts suck.
What does
So
that mean? Yeah.
yeah, the Jaguars got lit up by Washington the week before that. So maybe the Jags are therefore like an average defense if we're cutting the difference. But I'm not so sure that that's how it works either. Uh, I love the Jaguars offense. I think they got a lot of stuff going well for them. The more they get Etienne on the field instead of Marvin Jones, the better. I know that's not super realistic, but Marvin Jones is the only thing holding them back, and he's the reason they're playing 10 on 11. If they were playing 11 on 11, I would really like their chances of covering here, even going to the West Coast. But I don't know, man. 75% Herbert, or like 65% Herbert plus good pain killing drugs, I think is enough to probably 7 points does feel a little bit like a lot, but also Trevor's probably going to turn it over once or twice at least. So Eckler's due. Got these inexperienced Jaguars linebackers. Maybe Eckler gets going and kind of carries them or something.
Yeah, so I do like the Chargers this week.
Might get back Keenan, right? He's in
I believe
practice.
so.
So
Yeah,
that would be
he
big.
limited practice. Says he might play as of
Okay.
yesterday.
That would be big. He might be going if he is active. He might be the primary matchup for Darius Williams, who's like a pretty good player, but he's also like 5'9", 185 or something, and Keenan's like 6'2", 220.
Yeah, so he just physically went. He's just going to run the route. Herbert delivers, chains move, rinse, repeat. As
Yeah.
far as that goes, and I do like Eckler in the spot, like you mentioned. Let's see here. Trey wants to know full PPR flex option between Kareem Hunt, Allen Robinson, Travis Etienne, or Devontae Smith. So good group of options there, but that makes for a difficult choice.
Yeah, man. I think I lean. I don't know. I really like Allen Robinson's chances of getting going. I don't think the Cardinals are a real team, and I think that the Rams are. They're inclined to kind of like have a really good game against a divisional opponent, so they can almost like convince themselves that they are who they want to be. So I can
Mhm.
imagine Kupp and Allen Robinson both going off in this game. I might call. Oh man, I guess what I'll say is I think Robinson and Hunt are your kind of like safer options, and ETN the upside one. It's just with ETN the deal that it's always going to be, or at least for the foreseeable future, is we need him to get like 6.5 yards a carry and that touchdown or two, which I really like the chances of happening. Like these Chargers inside linebackers, I don't think want to deal with him, and Derwin's probably got to worry more about like Christian Kirk or something. So ETN can get loose, but it's more of a coin flip. Whereas with Hunt and Robinson, I think you can kind of just bank on something.
Yeah, I like the way that you framed that one. Let's keep going here. Bucks, Packers. Bucks 1 point favorites to 1.5 point favorites, depending on where you're looking.
This game's ugly, man.
I mean, the total has dropped a full touchdown. It was
So like
48.
last week, what was that one game last week where the spread dropped like 10.5 points, or the over under dropped like 10.5 points? I think
It must
this
have been
should have.
Bengals Cowboys, maybe.
No, it was something with something else, but anyway, sorry, I shouldn't have brought up such a stupid question. But in this case,
I should know it.
I feel like this should have dropped from like 47.5 to like 36.5 or something. I think I still am on the under. Both offensive lines are screwed up. Both receiver groups are screwed up. I guess the way the Packers can get going in this game is that Akeem Hicks looks like he's out for the Buccaneers, so they're just lit up everywhere. But the quarterbacks, I think, are not going to do anything in this game. Like I think whatever happens has to happen on the ground, and it's like Tampa's got the Vita Vea response to that. Maybe Hicks being out makes that a little different, but I feel like you got to run and just like not turn the ball over in this game, and I think both teams know that, which might kind of encourage passive play calling, or at least like lower tempo than it could be, shorter pass depths than it might otherwise be, less pass attempt volume, all of those things at once. So I don't know how either side gets any leverage on each other. It might be like kind of watching like a boring wrestling match or something where it's just like two guys just like grabbing each other and twisting around to no obvious effect or outcome for like however long wrestling matches last. And then a field goal at the end. Basically, I don't know. I hate this game. I don't know. I don't want to watch it. It's gonna be unless Tom. I don't. Tom. I was surprised. Tom looking like a weak little kitten is not as exciting as I thought it would be. It's like I'm like, man, this almost now it does seem like elder abuse. So I don't know.
I can stomach it for
you'll be okay with it. Yeah. I'm surprised how much I'm worried about Tom, but I guess I shouldn't be.
No, I just let it happen. But let's see here. Q Cole mentions his squad here. He's got Wentz, AJ Brown, Mike Evans, Dalvin Cook, McCaffrey, Kittle. Obviously missed a couple games. Mike Evans is going to miss this one. He's got Garrett Wilson 0-2, but I think that's a fine core on paper. I think that no need to
you're hurt by
panic
Kittle
trade
and a slow start by Dalvin, but I mean, it's one thing to panic if there's anything to be done. I think you just need to hope your luck improves.
Yeah, and I think it will. Maybe I'm wish casting a little bit as someone that has a little bit of Kittle, but hopefully it gets working here. Abraham wants to know, should I trade Aaron Jones and DJ Moore for McCaffrey in PPR? I would not.
I wouldn't. No.
No, I just really like the Aaron Jones, and I think this is a week that will kind of underscore what you were saying about this Packers offense running the ball a little bit more. We saw it on Sunday night, and it looked really good. I thought they had some creative looking run schemes, run game going up against the Bears. No Akeem Hicks for the Bucks. Things look good for Aaron Jones. I wish I had more of him, in fact, and I wish I had less of the Panthers offense in general. Okay, we got a couple more to get to here before we sign off. We got Rams Cardinals. You mentioned the Rams side of this with Allen Robinson. Anything to see? Any sleepers, or touch on the Cardinals backfield, and then we'll keep it rolling.
I don't know. I mean, Connor doesn't seem like he's looking so good. Darrell Williams had the 7 carries or whatever last week after not really playing the prior, and Benjamin ran ahead of him the prior week. Benjamin got more of the camp hype. There was those late training camp reports about how they were trying to trade Darrell Williams or something. I don't know if they know what they're doing. They might be kind of winging it. And Darrell Williams is not normally going to get returns like he did last week. He's just a fullback. I literally believe Xander Horvath is a more dangerous runner than Darrell Williams. And the more usage he gets, the lower that yards per snap or yards per touch is going to get. But Darrell Williams probably would be their goal line guy if they get a goal line setup. So I worry about Darrell Williams clearing so much as 15 yards as a runner. But if there's a goal line touchdown to be had, he has to be the heavy favorite to get it. So it's like it might make sense for somebody to start him. I just think you got to worry about the Rams scoring pretty easily in this game, and then maybe you have to worry a little bit about Benjamin going on the field for more of the targets, and maybe Darrell stays on for more of the blitz pickup kind of stuff.
Yeah, that would be an issue. I'm seriously having to consider starting Darrell Williams in the pentathlon, but that's a super flex league with 12 teams sharp. That's a tricky one, but might have to do it. We'll see. But yeah, I'm concerned about the Rams pulling away there. Let's go Falcons Seahawks. Falcons stayed on the West Coast this week, so you don't have to worry as much about the body clock thing. This time around, they obviously kind of had the backdoor cover against the Rams this past week. Not that it was or they had a lot of cushion to get there as 10.5 points. But they were down 28-3 at one point. Notable score for Falcons fans. Anywho, your thoughts on them going into Seattle? I think Seattle, I thought last week wasn't quite, like what we can totally expect from Seattle moving forward. Like, I don't think that they're a 0 points on offense team, especially not against the Falcons. But I do think that it proved that Monday night game against Denver was kind of a one-off, and I think that last week a little bit more.
I mean, Denver kind of sucks, but I mean,
sure.
the 49ers defense is the best in the league in my opinion. So it's like, yeah, we knew the Seahawks weren't truly good anyway, and if you're anything less than good, the 49ers can just wreck you like that. So especially if you don't have a quarterback, if you're dependent on the run against the 49ers, you're just dead right there. So that was one that the Seahawks couldn't win, whereas I think this one, I'm not going to say they can't lose, it's far from that, but they will do better. And I think Rashad Penny gets going a little bit here. I think Pete Carroll wanted to get him the ball more than this, and maybe just thought the time of possession would go differently than it has. And I think they're sitting here 1-1, kind of feeling like they got away with that one win that they have, and maybe wondering like, how do we get back to where we were at the end of last year? Oh, right, Rashad Penny was getting 20 carries a game. So I think they at least try to get him there in this one. I don't know what'll happen. The Falcons side, I also don't know what'll happen. I feel like they're kind of a wild card no matter who they're playing. Those Seattle corners are weird, but I don't think they're bad. And like Mike Jackson and Tyreek Woolen, it's like huge, fast guys. You could do worse than that. And London looks awesome, but he's still a 21-year-old rookie, so there might be some bumps. Kyle Pitts, I think, does get going here, and I don't know if it's pretty or whatever for the Falcons, especially overall, but I do think Pitts and Penny do a lot more in this game than the prior two.
Okay, all right. So good looking out there. Obviously, a lot of fantasy intrigue on those two guys. I have a weird feeling that the Falcons win this game, but I wouldn't necessarily like tail me on that one or take that as gospel. Jaws has been patiently waiting for his question, and that pertains to the Niners game that we are going to get to right now. So, your thoughts on this Niners backfield after Marlon Mack was elevated up onto the active roster there in San Francisco?
Yeah, I never was very high on Marlon Mack, but I mean, I still would be, I guess, surprised if he's truly worse than Jeff Wilson and even Jordan Mason, who I like Jordan Mason safely more than Tyrion Davis-Price, but that's just because I don't know if I've ever seen a worse running back. Chris Henry, Arizona, was the only running back worse as a prospect than Tyrion Davis-Price to ever be drafted in day two, is what I believe. So I can like Mason more and still not think Mason is very good, and I guess that's where I'm at. So I have no idea how we're going to guess who comes out ahead on what basis ever there, but it's probably the best spot in the league Mac could be in right now.
Well, so do we think he sees a role right away?
Not really, but a way better chance than anywhere else, and can't write him off.
Okay, all right. So at least I think he's
something
worth
there
like
to
a
take in,
a spec ad, that type of thing.
Yeah, you could do a lot worse picking him. I mean, I'm sure I've got a team somewhere where I'd be better off having Mac than somebody I do on my bench.
Yeah, no, I definitely feel you there. And then you're just kind of overarching thoughts on this game. We've kind of interspersed, our Nathaniel Hackett skepticism throughout these first couple of pods and throughout today's pod, but just kind of feeling like the Niners go in and get the win here.
I would hope so. I think yeah, I'm trying to keep like a fair recognition of the mile high factor. Like maybe something weird happens with the 49ers going there. But man, even if every one of the 11 starting 49ers defenders is getting like leg cramps in the second quarter, I still think they win because it really is as bad as it sounds with Hackett. And we do see even the biggest goofs of all time, like Matt Patricia, sometimes win games they shouldn't, and that could definitely happen here. But I think the 49ers are too urgent, having lost week 1, and they're going to basically, empty the clip if they have to.
Yeah. I like the Niners in this spot, even with the potential goofiness.
Yeah, I want to say 49ers like 45-0. I just when I start to let myself get worked up that way, I'm like, wait, maybe you're getting a little hysterical or something.
Ran it in. Will wants to know Sutton or Dotson. I think I love Jahan Dotson. I'd find a way to start him, but Sutton, I'm starting comfortably ahead.
Sutton's gonna get like 14 targets for 66 yards and a garbage time touchdown.
I will take that, especially in PPR. And then Nick wants to know Wilson or Lawrence worth dropping to start Goff this week.
Sorry, is that Zach Wilson?
I'm thinking Russ.
Oh no, man! I hate that team so much, but I wouldn't drop Russell Wilson. Like it'll
bad start to work out. Yeah,
he's not bad enough to be truly bad, especially when they get some easier matchups.
Yeah, and then rounding it out here, we got the Monday night game: Giants versus Cowboys. I don't know why we keep getting cursed by having to see this on national TV at least once a year, but
it's not even.
Here we are.
There's no Jason Garrett, so it's not funny. It's just it's just a bummer.
Their shenanigans are weird and tragic and sad, which makes them not really shenanigans at all.
I guess we might see Mike McCarthy just having a big fit about Kellen Moore or whatever, so maybe they can have a sideline meltdown. I definitely expect Dable to outcoach the Cowboys pretty easily, but the Giants are also the Giants are almost doing what Ryan Poles is doing, but they are actually trying to win. Like they're trying to like blow up the roster, but also like Dable's got them out there competing hard and whatever else. So I'll take the Giants, just because I don't know. It's a dreary thing, and Micah Parsons can take over games, but if he doesn't, I don't know who wins that for them.
And, at least on the Giants side, it seems like they have an offensive line that can at least slow down.
That could be the next, the way Detroit ascended so quickly in a way that people didn't expect. I think it mostly has to do with that offensive line, and the Giants are working toward that same thing.
Yeah, no, I mean, they've invested a ton of draft capital in those guys. I'm glad to see Andrew Thomas starting to
Crack Shot 322 is formally predicting that the Broncos will win, so write that down for him. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Got
I'll
that.
Remember that.
Yep. And then I think there was another crack shot about.
We said Rex Burkhead was RB1. Everyone, yeah, that's what we said.
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah. Go back into the archives. I'm sure that we were really vehement Rex Burkhead guys in the year of our Lord 2022. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, it's tattooed on you. But that's going to do it for us here on this edition of the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. Make sure you tune in on Friday. We got Ryan Belanger and Scott Genstad breaking down the DFS. I listen to them every week, and they make me from a bad NFL DFS player to a min cash NFL DFS player. So elevate your game, listen to those guys, and then, of course, listen to myself and Nick Whalen. We do an NFL betting podcast here on the RotoWire Network presented by BetMGM. That comes out on Fridays as well. But for Mario Puig, I'm John McKechnie. Thanks for listening.
Try RotoWire today, free for 10 days. Get our premium tools, rankings, analysis, and breaking news alerts. No credit card required. Go to rotowire.com/try.